Hello, everybody. Brave enough to watch. Welcome to the Too Spicy for Public. I've got my collaborators, Brandon, Shimon, Daniel, and Jay here with me. We're talking about cross-functional alignment. And here is where we're going to get a little personal. So I want you all to tell me about a time that you accidentally bulldozed another team. It's probably one of those back office folks, finance, product. Maybe you had a client you wanted to win. Maybe you were trying to save a client. Maybe you felt urgency and you perceived that they were stalling. Be brief. What happened? What did you learn? And most importantly, what do you do differently now? And because we're getting a little sassy, let's not name any names, right? Totally anonymous. The only one is you. So it's not a shame show. This is about balance. I'll go first with one story. So, I was working as VP of sales for a SaaS company and long sales cycle, as SaaS often is, and it's never one size fits all. So there was maybe custom pricing or maybe something that I needed the service team to do a little bit differently during onboarding or delivery or whatever. And I thought I had a good relationship with the director of ops and he would agree to things. We'd land the business and then I'd hear back from the client that they weren't doing the thing. And then so now I'm getting yelled at. Now we're doing a diving save. And then I would go in there a little hot caller and we would have a heated discussion. And then finally I was like, okay, this is happening way too much. And so we went to lunch, we went to In-N-Out, and I was like, what is up? And he goes, well, I agree to things that I don't want to do because I'm afraid you'll get mad at me. And, I know that you want to win the client. And I was like, but I'm way madder at you when it all falls apart. And then so what I learned is that he just needed more time. And so I would tell him what I needed. I would tell him why. And then I would say, can you get back to me by Friday? Problem solved. And the weird thing is that he still agreed to everything that I wanted, but also delivered. So it was all just in the approach where he felt unsafe and where he did have power was to pull back. So there's me. All right. So then, Jay, I'd like you to go next, please.
All right, so I guess give us some context. This happened, that's the first summer of COVID, which obviously everyone's tension levels were a bit high. And so one of our larger clients, the CEO, called me, I think it was around maybe like May or June, in an insane panic. They had a large sales force, a marketing team, and basically revenue had just completely stalled, and they were beyond stressed out. And so he's like, I need your team in 30 days to basically solve world hunger. And so, we had to, build a new website campaign. We had to launch a whole new campaign. There was so much. Typically, it probably would have been a 2 to 3 month project. We had to get it all done, not only in 30 days, but also generating leads. And so to move that fast, of course, some things have to break. And he's like, everyone's on board. Let's do this. Go. And so we had to kind of almost steamroll over the finance team and the ops team. And those two teams, especially finance, after we gave back our recommendations, like on the third or fourth day, he's like, how many leads should we expect? Like all the typical things that, a CFO would want. And like, we don't know. Approve it, go. And, and then I had to call the CEO that the CFO was holding things up. They had a little tizzy and ended up getting approved and off we go. The campaign did work actually very well, thank goodness. But when we had another project a few months later, I noticed there was a lot of tension in the room between our team, the finance team, and their ops director. And what I realized is that, yes, we hit the timeline, but we clearly kind of like burned some trust. And we're very relationship driven. So that personally really was painful for me. And so I had to really work hard to kind of think about, like when you have to have a lot of speed, and some people define speed as chaos, like how can we remove some of those blind spots and then find a more effective way when we're moving so fast to loop in the teams from day one. I feel like if we all were moving together fast, I feel like things would have been not only much more effective in defining success when that program was done, but I feel like also we wouldn't have kind of lost any trust with those people. So I guess my big lesson learned was that alignment without inclusion really isn't alignment. It comes down to like that whole control side. And that's the part that I'm realizing some people worry about their jobs and the business. And if we're jeopardizing any of that, I can see why they'd be worried. And so we're having a lot more empathetic approach now to all of this, that everyone's kind of bought in where it makes sense.
I love alignment without inclusion. I feel like that is a really nice hook on LinkedIn. Good job. And thank you. Okay, Brandon, you're next.
Hey,
Dish.
yeah, I have no problem telling this right out of the gate. I am a marketer who loves hitting his numbers. Like that's like my North Star. I'm a former athlete, so anytime I'm meeting expectations on statistics and I can show proof of concept and deliver, that's me. With that being said, when it comes to marketing in the office or remote world, I love having my content aligned with expectations on close of sales. Our product does this. You will feel this. That's the end result. So I love pushing the emotive feel. That's how we purchase. That's how we buy. However, during a season before COVID, pre-COVID sales, in the tech space, I was driving a go-to-market for a software as a service company, and I was really good at communicating throughout our buyer journey on what to expect, what the process would look like, all these great, feely, emotive things that we all want out of a purchase. But what ends up happening is I pass that along to sales. I'm very good friends with sales. Hey, Brandon's got it. We'll do it. We'll deliver. Yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah, this is what we can do. This is what we can do. However, what we're ultimately saying is I'm passing the buck. I'm passing the buck from marketing over to sales. Sales are saying, yeah, we can do the same thing. Ultimately, who is going to end up holding those things that we said we're going to deliver? That's going to either tap into the product side or that's going to tap into the customer success side, where it comes to, did we deliver on what marketing and sales said? So there was a period in the season where Brandon was a bit bullish on saying, hey, I can do these things. I can excel on these areas. We can promise and deliver. Where I'm asking product, hey, we have a huge feature request for a huge client that will help me look good on my MQL numbers, help sales look good on their close of, quarter results. But ultimately it's a singular feature request from product and they have to do custom work. Mind you, this is not a custom house. We have a product. It serves as, focal point. So I'm going direct to their chief product marketing officers. Hey, I need this. It could attribute X amount of revenue. If we can close this by this, sales need it closed by this. So we need you to move your product roadmap for this huge feature request for these type of clients that I'm able to bring in, by virtue of your expedient, product enhancement. So there, we're having this relationship. I'm saying, hey, I can get you this. I can get you more swag. I can get you a free lunch. I'm using marketing budget to help the team stay late. All these type of things that, I'm helping them feel and say, hey, we'll do it for Brandon. Brandon's a nice guy. He makes us feel good. He's funny. All these charismatic things that marketers are. However, what is ultimately leading to backlog? We're not making, we're not making product enhancements on our product roadmap on time. So I'm pushing back his timeline. So ultimately what ends up happening is we had a period of about 2 quarters where we're exceeding expectation, but product is looking really bad because their journey isn't meeting expectations of our overall customer value. So ultimately I was hurting the business by making my numbers look look overfluffed and sales as well. And at the end of the day, as we said, marketers, we need to make sure that what we're promising, we can deliver out of the box, needless to say. It needs to be really streamlined. We need to make sure that we're not hurting another entity because that pain is going to hurt later in our building of relationships. And so I'm a relationship guy. I know, some people are rah-rah, will do it for the team. But ultimately, if you're overcompensating and you're going back to the same tried and true, then this is just not something you can do. And you need to move on to another client that can, and will be okay with the expectation of what you're promising ultimately versus over promising and, leading to under delivery. So again, bullish of Brandon, spank of a hand, but needless to say, good lessons learned.
Your product team is not order takers. Okay, thank you for that. So Daniel, give us a juicy story. A lesson.
Well, I have a tremendous optimism bias, and often that's a nice thing to have because you can see the bright side, but it also can lead to believing things that are not realistic. And so this is actually one where I was the customer. I worked at a company who was about to make a huge purchase for software that would automate this manual drudgery that we did. And the sales team promised the software could do, it could eliminate all that work. Everything is automated. And I was like, that's it. Sweet. So I sold it to my business. I'm like, this is what it can deliver. And it could not deliver that. And I mean, it's exactly what we've been talking about today. They scored a huge sale, but they misled about what it could do. And then we would not end up being, retaining us. but we still made this huge purchase. And so what I had to do to the people on my team is I said, this company promised they could do this, but I did not verify. And now I need you to go build functionality to support their software. And so I had to charge an analytics team to build the automation functionality that this company promised they could deliver. So we were able to do it, but it was a huge lesson. I need to see the pudding and not just sales says and verify it. So it's a really good lesson. And I feel like I need to buy the analytics leader a beer for the rest of my life every time I see her for saving me. But yeah, trust but verify.
Trust but verify. And I am one, as the sales leader in the room, who will always say, when no one wants to talk to sales and the buyer brings in sales later and later in their journey, you did it to yourself, sales. That's all. You caused your problem. Yes, Daniel. Thank you. Okay, Shimon, what's your hard-earned lesson?
Well, this was at the times before COVID, when I was also leading a large global team and customer success and support. There was as someone who was really and still is obsessed about customers and their experience and the impact that SaaS product does on their overall business. There was a big line, I would say, pipeline of requests that the clients had with me for the product, and the company at the same time was going and working on a tech debt. But basically, they were doing a lot of those changes and programming in the back end, which delayed everything. And me going back to the CEO, who was not in country, was a different country, and I'm going to name, and walked into his office and said, "Well, here are the requests from clients. This is extremely important. Some of them are really our top enterprise clients for this product. But there is an issue because the product, they are actually creating the bottleneck in whatever we need to do." And I thought I'd get some sympathy here, and what I got was a look. They. What is going on here? And my heart sank. So that was a good lesson. Since then, I realized that I need to think clearly about how to bridge those gaps, especially if they are global. Make sure that communication it's not just communication, but builds roads of trust, work together, make sure that you are working as one company and not as silos. That was a really a good awakening point. And I still remember that feeling of my heart sinking when he said that, when I was hoping for a completely different reaction. And that's my reminder. Work together, collaborate.
Yeah, that's a tough lesson. You're all on the same team. Attack the problem, not the person, right? No, that's a good lesson to learn. All right, guys. I don't know if this was too terribly spicy. It's all good. These are important lessons. So thank you for sharing them and for being vulnerable to admit that sometimes you are the problem. And for those of you listening, we'll see you next month with another spicy clip. Thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
Summer.
Thank you.